Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Around the Ballpark podcast. My name is Mike Redmond, alongside my co-host, Darren Redmond, and we are live tonight, and we are doing something a little bit out of the box. Our guest tonight is Devin. He is with the Oil and White podcast alongside. We're talking Edmonton Oilers NHL hockey. Before we dive into that, Darren, if you wouldn't mind to share a few words from our sponsor at Nashville Tax Solutions.
Attention Palm Bay and Fort Pierce. Struggling with tax issues? Whether you're behind on filings, dealing with a lien, or just need expert guidance, Nashville Tax Solutions here to help. Their team knows the in and outs of tax relief and is ready to fight for you. But don't just take my word for it. Don't take Mike's word for it. Listen to what some clients have wrote and told us what has happened. Chris Bennett and his team has saved me from a financial nightmare. They're knowledgeable, clear, and compassionate. So don't let tax troubles keep you up at night. Call 855-627-4829. Visit NashvilleTaxSolutions.com or email info@NashvilleTaxSolutions.com today. Nashville Tax Solutions, because tax problems deserve real solutions. We love Chris Bennett and the work that he does.
Yes, thank you so much. And our guest tonight is Devin, as we mentioned. So, Devin, if you wouldn't mind just kind of quickly introducing yourself, who you are, where you're from, and where those watching can find you on social media.
Hi, I'm Devin. I've been writing some sports articles for the Oilers for a couple of years now through Oil and White. I'm their co-site expert. Basically you can find me if you go Oil and White. You can read my articles, all my colleagues' articles, and all my socials and everything's on there. And started working for them like 3 years ago now. And it's all Oilers. It turned a hobby, probably just like you guys, turned it into something that I enjoy doing all the time.
Yeah, because it's funny how that works. It becomes like, oh, this would be interesting to do. Now it's like something like a highlight of the week, or a highlight of the day, or whatever it might be. And so one thing before we even get started, I wanted to mention to you, Devin, is when we first got started here as the Around the Ballpark podcast was primarily a baseball related podcast, and it still is to some effect. But we were the title of our podcast, the Around the Ballpark, we strategically picked that title because although you go to the ballpark, you get a game in, all that kind of stuff, on your way to the ballpark, you talk all things. You don't just talk about the specific game you're going to go to. And so it's important to us every once in a while to have a specialty episode, something around the ballpark of in the sports realm. And so it's been near and dear to my heart to finally have a hockey themed episode here. And Darren, this is your bread and butter, like you mentioned, your wheelhouse. And so I wouldn't mind if that's cool with you, Darren, just give a quick brief of your past with in terms of the hockey realm and stuff, and then we'll get into getting to know Devin a little bit and talking all things Edmonton Oilers and NHL.
Well, for a couple of years, I was the director of hockey for the Fresno Monsters of the USPHL, and I've covered with Fresno Hockey Talk. I covered the Bakersfield Condors, who are a minor league team for the Oilers. So, my son played travel hockey for years, and they won a state title, which was great as well. Lifelong Ranger fan, but just love the sport, love the culture. On my other podcast, I've been fortunate enough to have on a couple of hockey players, one of which is Kevin Killer Kaminsky. If you remember him, he played with the Capitals for years, a notorious fighter, started with the North Stars and then played with the Quebec Nordiques, and some great stuff. And always had a soft spot in my heart for the Oilers because they would beat the Islanders. So Devin, I love what you do.
Yeah, we beat a lot of people back then. So,
but so Devin, if I could, let's start here, if that's cool with you. So one of the things we really enjoy doing on this podcast is not so much like we do like asking questions and stuff, but we're big into just stories and experiences more so than like your generic, how did you feel when this happened? So jumping into it, if you wouldn't mind just sharing the experience of Rogers Center in terms of someone that has not been, what they are to expect when they walk into Rogers Center, whether it be an item on the menu, some kind of something in passing by where, it's someone that hasn't been, you got to take them to this part of the stadium, that sort of thing. If you wouldn't mind talking us through the experience of Rogers Center.
So I've been to a couple other NHL rinks. I went to LA, see the Staples Center and the Calgary Saddledome. And compared to those, Rogers Center place is one of the best I've ever been to. It's one of the newest in the NHL, so I know the players love it. They got all brand new, state of the art, everything you want it, it's there. And same goes for the fans. They kind of put the arena downtown, trying to kind of make our downtown much better. So now, like when it first opened, it was kind of by itself, but now we're almost, I think, almost 10 years into it, and a bunch of everything's growing up around it. So there's bars now, hotels now. During COVID, we hosted the NHL bubble, was
Yes.
in Edmonton at Rogers Place.
As you should. That was a wonderful place to put it.
And actually, I worked for the company that actually did the COVID testing every day. So I actually was in the bubble, helping check players in and working them through. And it was quite the experience. It was kind of inconvenient. I'd have to get a COVID test every single day. I'd wake up in the morning, drive downtown, get my throat swabbed, and then go to work. And everybody that was in that bubble did it. If you worked in a hotel, everybody got their throat swabbed every day. It would alternate between throat and nose.
Right.
But that just goes to show what that rink brought to not just Edmonton, but to Canada, Alberta, North America, because of the way it's set up. You can walk anywhere downtown right now through a pedway without having to leave it. And that's where the COVID bubble was good. They just shut off hotels and you can just walk inside to get there. And with the Edmonton winters we get, that comes in really nice when you want to go see a game, but it's minus 30. You can just walk you can park in almost any parkade around, or if you're from out of town, stay in a hotel, and you can almost get there within like a 1 mile radius. You can walk in without going outside. As for what's inside the rink, it's, like I said, state of the art. They have the Oilers history. There's tons of memorabilia plastered throughout that building behind glass cases. So it's a history when you're in there too.
Go ahead, Nick.
So no, I wanted to ask a question because I'm into this kind of stuff too, about conversations and sort of aesthetics. And so, Devin, I want to ask you, and I know I'm getting to the age now where I don't want to ever be the old man yelling at clouds, but the Oiler sweater is, to me, iconic. I mean, it's up there with some of the, the original 6 teams. And, you have to understand too, Mike, this was a team coming from the WHL, that, I mean, it fit perfectly. It was everything right. Everything right. I mean, everything that unfortunately went wrong with Quebec went right with Edmonton. They just loved their team. And that jersey, talk about that jersey. And you don't want to mess with it. I mean, I like the alternative ones this and sometimes, but it's a beautiful, beautiful jersey.
Yeah, and I think that's like what you said. Lots of teams are changing their logos, their colors. Edmonton, we kind of went away from it for a little bit with the darker blue.
Right.
But yeah, like you said, we just reverted it's closer back to that orange and that light blue now.
Yep.
And it's nice because, like you said, we dabbled in a couple of alternates. Like we had the Heritage Classic one, but it goes. Like we always keep the same logo. It's, like I said, since I've been alive, that logo's been the same.
Right.
And it's almost always been a blue. But like you said, a couple of years ago, they went back to that orange. And like you said, I've done that blue. And that's pretty much, honestly, I think right when Connor McDavid came in is when they went back and they've never left it again.
Which is a great choice, I think.
Yeah.
Yes. So. And before we dive into the on the current season, all that, I've got to ask one. We love our stadium eats as well. And so we've been to stadiums that have, like, for us in the ballpark and stuff like that, we've been to stadiums that have the best hot dogs you can ever imagine, some of the best toppings. And then we've gone to stadiums where I would rather have 5 hot dogs from a 7-Eleven to have half of a hot dog at these stadiums. So what is your go-to stadium eat there at the Edmonton Stadium?
So just like you guys have in Ball Diamonds, there's a couple of pop-up stations that come up. Like they'll do like a pulled pork sandwich, and
Right.
every game it's something different.
Oh,
So
nice.
that's when I go. I usually, at least, I may not eat it,
Mhm.
but I'll go look at it and see if it moves me either way, because you never know. But the problem is, like it's not cheap. Like
Right.
go to a ball game, it's decent amount to eat, but like I think for a burger and fries, it's like $14.
Yeah.
So it's tough to. It's cheaper to go to the bar and eat than
Right.
come to the game, which you wouldn't think is right, because bar food should be probably more expensive. But it's
Right.
most people will eat before they go, just because the price of eating concession food, and it, like you guys have for ball stuff, there's usually like every one's something good.
Mhm.
It's there's a burger, a hot dog,
Yep.
a pizza, and that's pretty much almost every station has the exact same stuff.
Yep.
And that's one thing like ball does, I find really well, is go to a ballpark. You can go for the game, but you can walk around and eat too if it's a bad game, right?
Right. But it's true. I mean, he said it. He said it all.
Yeah.
Little secret that Devin probably already knows too, because he's covered sports and covered the Oilers. You know, you eat a lot better when you're in the press box. There's a lot of food there. There's, but and it's free. So I would bring my appetite when I was covering the game, but when I go to a game, Devin hit it on the head. I eat out and outside and come in, and I'll get something just to late in the game, and that's it. But I do not spend, because it's expensive.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, definitely is. And so, but now I want to ask this question as we start talking about the current Edmonton team. As of right now, props to you, first of all, that currently right now they're actually in the middle of a game. They're playing right now. So are you going to watch it? Do you have it on in the background?
Oh, I have it paused. It's downstairs.
Okay.
It's like, oh, gotta go watch this. Like, pause it.
Awesome.
I turned off all my notifications, so hopefully nothing like pops.
I turn all mine off. Like my Rangers will lose probably to the Wild tonight, but I don't want to know what's going on until I watch things sitting on my couch.
Yeah, and it's funny because I share a login with a friend of mine, and he likes to see the scores, and I don't. So it's a battle every day, going into the settings, turning the notifications off, because if you see what So, I wanted to ask that question. All I'll say is that tonight that they're playing in New Jersey. So other than that, that's as far as I'll go. But so as of right now, those that may not know, obviously Devin knows, they are, as of today's date, and Darren, thanks for the heads up on the info, they are currently 37-23, which is positioning them second in the NHL Pacific Division. And so, but one thing that is a cause of concern right now, and you both probably are aware, they have lost 7 of their last 10 games. So, Devin, I'll start with you first in terms of, fortunately, they're still in a very good spot, but what needs to happen to kind of right the ship of what's been happening these last 10 games?
It's just the whole team. I can't pick one or the other. Like, they all have just been pretty subpar. Although it seemed like that Four Nations break,
I was going to say,
threw them for a loop. Like, Connor McDavid won the gold medal, and his first couple of games back, he's the best player in the NHL, but he wasn't the best player, and you could tell he was moving slow. The last couple of games, they've been getting closer. They beat Dallas. It was a good team, but then 2 days later, they lost to a bad team. So I don't know what they're doing right now. Hopefully, they're winning. But they have all the pieces. It just seems like everyone's running at 75%. I don't know if they're just waiting to get to the playoffs right now, because like you said, they're in a good position, and they'd have to struggle pretty bad to get knocked out. And with the high of last year, I think they just really care about the cup and not so much where they end up in the standings.
Let's unpack that Four Nation tournament, which was just fantastic to watch. The better team won, but that was just amazing to watch. I mean, the truth is, North America can stand up very proudly the talent that we have, best in the world, and Canada is the best right now in the world in players. Were you surprised with how well that was received?
If I'm going to be honest, going into it, I
Yeah.
kind of thought it was going to be like the All-Star game and be kind of
Right.
gimmicky, and they weren't going to try their hardest. The first game I watched the Canada Sweden game, and I was like, wow, was I wrong? Because they were trying their hardest. And then like the Canada versus States games were crazy.
Unbelievable. Yep.
Yeah, they were top, all the best players in the world, and that's kind of what we've missed with the Olympics, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because half of those players haven't played in the Olympics.
Yeah, and how do you feel about the players playing the Olympics? I think it's hockey. They love it. Let them play.
Yeah, I get the point from like the team aspect. Like
Right.
if you send Connor McDavid there, he breaks his leg and misses the playoffs, all Oilers fans are gonna be like, we should not have sent Connor McDavid.
Right.
I think that happened at one of the last things John Tavares for the Islanders broke his leg or something like that, and Islanders fans were not happy. But that's that risk with you play anything. Like that could happen to the All-Star game. That could happen in game 62 of the season. And then if you're just trying to avoid an injury, you're not really playing, really. That's what I'd say.
No, well, you know that. If you try to avoid an injury out there, you're going to get injured all the time.
Yeah. And you mentioned Connor McDavid, and Darren had pointed out to me recently, I believe it was March 4th, was his 700th NHL appearance. So in which game he did contribute both a goal and an assist. So, so he is the, talk a little bit about Connor McDavid in terms of the significance, because if I'm not mistaken, he's been around with them since like 2015, right?
Yes.
Okay. Devon, you tell him, because we all know his nickname.
Yeah. Yeah, you know his nickname. The Oilers, we were good, as you guys know, for a while there. We went on one playoff run in 2008, I think it was. And then we had 10 years of absolute garbage teams. We called it the Decade of Darkness because it was just so bad. And with that, when you're at the bottom of the league, you get all these first round draft picks. We had 4 or 5 almost first overall draft picks, which is not good. And then Connor McDavid came. When we drafted Connor McDavid, then we got a new GM, and then we started basically from the bottom. First couple of years with McDavid, we struggled. But obviously, when you get the best player in the league, one thing that I've noticed is when you have a good team and the best player, players want to play with him. So, we don't have the best climate here. So it was always, if we weren't winning and we didn't have anybody good, it's hard to get those high level free agent signings. But now we got Connor McDavid. We're going deep in the playoffs. Players are starting to actually want to come to Edmonton, which has really helped us out.
And Draisaitl is bag of shells. He's very good too.
Yeah.
So
and Darren, full disclosure, I am very happy that you pronounced it before I got a chance to pronounce it. So
you will.
Oh, it doesn't look like it's supposed to look. Yeah, it's correct.
Yes, but leading the team, 46 goals, 51 assists. So as of recent. So, but yeah.
One thing,
so
just sidebar real quick. Again, this is the stuff you talk about when you're driving to a stadium, right? Driving to a arena, a hockey barn. So the Rangers, when they won the Cup in '94, basically there should be an asterisk for the Oilers, right? I mean, that team was the Oilers, right? It was, Messier, it was McTavish, it was Bukaboom, it was Esa-Tikkanen, who I just absolutely love. I think there were 1 or 2 others there as well. Kevin Lowe. I mean, they were all Oilers.
Yeah. Well, that was when I think money became a problem in Edmonton, so we couldn't re-sign and bring in keep all those players. And then Glenn Sather moved and just said, "Hey, you guys won. We won with you here. Why don't you come here? We'll win with you here too." And they obviously did.
So, Mike, kind of to put it in perspective, so think about like the Dodgers, right? And for whatever reason, they had to leave LA, and a whole bunch of Dodgers moved to Tampa, and they all played for Tampa. That's what it was like.
That's what it's like. Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's literally what it was like, and they won a cup. So
yeah. Well, yeah,
Adam
Graves,
and Adam Graves. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you look at the, and that was a question we're gonna get to, but you look at some of the top Oilers of all time, and some of these names on there, and it's like, wow, just even someone who enjoys the sport, but I'm not as into it as I'd like to be, and that's partially because of not being able to get some of the stations that they're on. But one thing, I just want, this is again sidebar tangent, but one thing I always found interesting is, for whatever reason, you ask the casual, or I guess the fan that doesn't even go to, really doesn't enjoy sports, if they do go, they get a free ticket or whatever. And it seems like it's always said, no matter what, as popular as NFL is, as popular as the NBA can be, and Major League Baseball, always seems like the answer to the person who's not a big sports fan is what sports they enjoyed most. And it always seems to be hockey for whatever reason. It's not, for some of the other sports, it's because of this, because of that. But like, I found that people are more invested in the actual product of the game, going to an NHL game, just from my outside perspective, looking in for, and a lot of reasons for that, whether it's I haven't been to an NHL game. I've been able to go to, I've seen the Orlando Solar Bears and the, and lower leagues and stuff like that, and still though had a fantastic time. And I mean, I'm living in a state here in Florida. I'm actually out of Palm Bay, Florida. It's about an hour south of Orlando, where we have two teams, the Lightning and the Panthers, that are
two very good teams.
Yeah, that are pretty much running the NHL the last couple of years. So, but so what I wanted to ask you next is on, there was that recent trade Darren had mentioned to me also about the with the Boston Bruins and the Devils. And so your just quick thoughts on that and how that panned out, and your thoughts on that, is that kind of everything falls into place with that trade.
Which one was it?
And that was
Brad Marchand going from Boston to, which I don't.
Florida.
If I can start, I'm sorry, my apologies, but if I can start, what the hell? What were they thinking? How do you give Brad Marchand to the Stanley Cup champion team, who, by the way, for the record, I'll say it, should not have won Game 7. The Oilers were the better team, but you know what the Panthers do? They don't make mistakes. And
that's what it is, right? Like, it's a 1-goal game in Game 7. Yep. That's how couldn't get much tighter.
Mike Clark, by the way, you see what he wrote? He's absolutely right. Mike Clark wrote, the most hated by Florida Panther fans. Absolutely. So what did you think as a hockey fan? You followed the Oilers, but what did you think when you heard that Marchand ended up with the Panthers?
So being from Canada, I'm obviously like, hockey is our number one sport. So I got the trade center role in that whole day. And as soon as I saw that Marchand was getting traded, obviously I'm like, oh man, he would look good for the Oilers.
Right.
And then obviously 10 minutes later, it's like he's going to Florida. And I was like, oh, good, because the rich needed to get richer.
That's right.
I don't know, like, he's a free agent. So, and sounded like he wanted to sign with Boston, but I don't know why Boston just gave him away. And they didn't get much for him either.
No,
which is
third,
weird.
But a third? Something like that.
Yeah, like, I didn't quite understand it. You're based, like you said, everyone in the East, does not like Brad Marchand. Everyone in the whole NHL doesn't like Brad Marchand, except for Boston fans, and now probably only Panthers fans like him, which is very strange.
So let me put his perspective, Mike. I am not kidding. 4 years ago in the playoffs, Marchand had to be warned a couple of times. He would come up to the person who was playing across from him before the puck dropped and lick their face. Am I wrong, Devin? Am I wrong? Am I exaggerating?
It did.
That happened.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And Mike Clark, my best friend on here, is a season ticket holder for the Florida Panthers, so he gets to go very often.
Oh, second round pick. All right, yeah.
Yeah.
Still.
So, but what do you call it? So, wanted to just talk a little bit about their coaching and leadership. Your thoughts on the head coach and that side of things, because I'm interested to see what you're going to say on that one.
For the Oilers, is it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So for some reason, like, the Oilers, like, he came in last year. The Oilers had an absolute. They were, I think, bottom 5 of the league last year at the start of the season. Could not win a game. So first step you do is coach swap. After that, they seem to just rally around. I don't know if that's what it is, around Knobloch there, and they went on like 2 5+ game winning streaks, and then one massive, I think it was 16. I think it was like a couple away from the NHL record winning streaks. And ever since that coaching change, they went from like worst defensively to best defensively, just over, like I said, over almost overnight. I don't know what it is to just say rally around the new coach. This year they're starting to slip a bit now, as you mentioned, with the tough go here. But yeah, with the coach now, it seems like he's more calm than the rest of them. And I think when he gets interviewed after the games, even if they do a terrible game, he kind of, to the media at least, he stays pretty level-headed. I'd assume in the locker room it's not as much,
Right.
but at least he's always seems calm. Whereas like the last couple coaches, when they started to lose 3 or 4 games in a row, you could start to see it in their interviews. So hopefully that calming presence eventually carries it to the team. And it seems like last year, the playoffs, being down 3-0 to the Panthers, to come back to almost win the whole thing, you could tell the whole team doesn't just roll over and die. And that's something that
Well,
I
I mean,
hope
when you got
keeps
an
going.
assistant coach like Paul Coffey, I mean, you just turn to his greatness, and he's got to hold his one hand to lift his other hand. He's got so many rings, I mean, which is great. And then personally, I lived right outside of Fresno for 16 years. That's when I covered Fresno Monsters and was working in the front office. And Glenn Gullickson, who's also one of the assistant coaches, a former head coach as well. He played for the Fresno Falcons when they were in the ECHL. And so I'm very familiar with. And again, another level-headed guy. I love how you say just level-headed. They know the game. You have your responsibilities. Probably loud in the locker room, but that bench always looks under control.
Yeah, and I think with Glenn Gullickson, like you said, he used to be the head coach in the NHL. Yep. So to have your assistant coach be an old head coach doesn't hurt either. And like you said, Paul Coffey, one of the NHL's best defensemen all time, running your defense. And I think that's one of those things. So when he took over last year, you could almost see it after 2 to 3 games. It was a completely different system, and the team turned it right around.
Oh, absolutely.
Darren, I'll ask you this first, and then Devin, get your insight on that. So one of the things we had talked about offline that I wanted to make sure to mention and bring up here in this podcast was just from an outside perspective looking, and it does seem like the longevity of players remaining with the team that they're on is a lot longer in the NHL compared to the other major sports. Is that something? Do you feel like, Darren, I'll start with you, where you feel like there's a reason for that, or is it just one of those things, like nature of the beast?
There's a salary cap, and or at least sort of constraints, and the culture of hockey is just different. I'm not saying it's the greatest in the world, but it really is. It's just different. I played college football, and I grew up loving baseball, but hockey culture, you heard me talk about the bus rides and some of this other stuff with it's different. You become part of the fan base. You become part of the team. That's what made the Brand Marchand trade so shocking. And are you going to leave fans that love you in a wonderful place like Edmonton? Just use that as an example. For a couple $1 million more, I don't know. I don't think you do. It's just part of the culture. You wear that sweater with pride. And I don't know, Devin, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you hit it perfectly. It's just you're part of a family, I think, and it's loyalty. I think NHL hockey players show loyalty. If you're nice to them, they're going to be nice to you. Like I said, they interviewed Brad Marchand, I think, a week before the trade deadline, and he literally said, "I want to retire at Boston Bruins," and that's why it was such a shock that he got traded. He said that a week ago, so it wasn't him saying, "I want to go." Like, he would have re-signed there. It's like you said, compared to other leagues, star players don't go anywhere. I think one John Tavares leaving the Islanders, I think, is one of the only ones that's actually made it all the way through and said, I don't want to stay here anymore. Because it's so rare. Like every
look where he went. He went to an original
exactly.
16.
Yeah.
He went to Toronto, the capital of NHL
and he grew
hockey.
up. There's like when he signed, it's like obviously I get all our sports stations are based in Toronto. So it was just pictures of John Tavares in his Maple Leafs pajamas when he was a kid.
Yeah.
Yep, that's exactly what it was. It's him in his Maple Leafs pajamas. And they signed him for a ton of money. And honestly, right now it probably hurts them because of that salary cap.
Yeah,
but
because what it's interesting, if you look at, I have here the top Oilers of all time, and so one of the things we do on our baseball related episodes, we'll do Mount Rushmores, and a lot of times you find yourself looking at the longevity, and you're like, okay, I'm putting this guy on the Mount Rushmore of this team, but he was there 7 years, and granted he had 7 good years, but I'm looking at this list here and I see Gretzky 11 years, and McDavid now on his 10th year, Messier 12 years, Coffey 8 years, and the list goes on and on, actually. Curry, another 10 years, 10, 11 years, Glenn Anderson, 11 years, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what really sparked that initial thought as well, and so I'm glad I'm learning a lot listening to both of you in terms of your reasoning, why you think that, and the loyalty. So that's cool to hear. I have to ask this question too. I put this in my notes. So they call some of the different franchises, they have like their super fans and whatnot. Is there still someone called McMullet that attends the games? Is that correct?
Yeah, if you watch the games on our broadcast, he pretty much, when they score a goal and they're in Edmonton, he gets the camera. Like, I don't know if the guys have the camera or always sitting there, but he's there. Yeah, he's there. There's a couple of
That's
them.
hockey. That's hockey.
There's a couple of guys at every game, and like I'm pretty sure it's him. He lives probably, I think they did a story on him in those playoffs. He's made a ton of games in a row, and he doesn't live that close to Edmonton. Like, it's hours away, I think. So he drives, and I think he makes almost every game, if I can be correct. And that's something I wouldn't do, but good for him.
I think that's great.
What do you call it? And then one thing, and then Darren, if you had a couple questions after that, but I've got to ask this too. And keeping in mind this is a PG show, but I do have to bring this up because it happened last year. But from your side of things, your perspective, like the craziness that was the viral clip with the fan and flashing the whole thing during Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals, like just. Did that get blown out of proportion on your end where you are as well as it did here? Because that was all I could see on my feeds was just fan reactions.
Like, you couldn't scroll through any sort of social media without seeing it. But like with all sports, there's levels of crazy. And I think now, even with everybody having their phone out all the time, I'm surprised that doesn't happen more.
Yeah.
But that instance, that one was interesting. Let's use that term.
Yeah, that's a good word for it.
But like you said, it probably, like where you are, it's probably not hockey focused, and for you to see it, like, it's tough. Like, is it good for the game to see that are more people now going to watch it? Like, I don't know if it hurts the game or if anything, but it made its way through. So now more people who probably never heard of hockey that are like, it must be that good. It must be that good.
That's funny. But Darren, did you have a couple follow-up questions you wanted to?
Well, just a couple of things. Let's talk about the Mount Rushmore. Your Mount Rushmore, but your Mount Rushmore, 4 players. 2 must be players that will surprise most people. So I'll give you my 2. My 2 that would surprise you were Esatikin. I just loved the way he played. And I loved Dave Semenko. I truly love Dave Semenko because, we used to call him Cement Head, right? For a reason, and lovable, in that way. He just did what he had to do to protect Gretzky.
Yeah.
And my other 2, if you need to know, are, Messier and Gretzky. But who would be your 4? With 2 of those being maybe plays that you don't, expect.
Well, I'll take the 2 obvious ones out. Like, I'm going to go McDavid and Gretzky, because both generational players. Not much more needed on that.
Exactly.
I'm a bit different age groups. So I probably grew up late 90s is when I kind of started watching him. So that's where I'd have I would probably choose Doug Waite.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
He would probably be. That's the one player as I was younger I remember.
Right.
I first I don't know where it came from. I had like a Doug Waite shirt.
Right.
I had my parents obviously got for me. I had a
Mike,
Doug
just
Waite
so you
picture in
know,
my room.
think Howard Johnson. Just so you know.
Okay.
You understand? Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, I had a picture of him, and just like every time I'm playing a video game, like, well, sign me up. I'm being Doug Waite, right?
Right.
Like that's how, And then for another one, probably someone like George the Rock.
Right. Oh,
kind of the
very
same
good.
reason, right?
Yep.
Tough, big energy guy. Then he was around during that Decade of Darkness for parts of it, and he made you like, oh well, maybe George the Rock will get in a fight tonight. Like that was what the games were, because we weren't going to win. Those were bad. So I was like, oh, maybe we'll see. He's like, then we had a couple other young, like we had those first overall picks. We had a couple of them roll through. Like, oh, these get the odd nice goal from time to time, but George the Rock, like he still comes to Edmonton all the time. He's always at the events here.
See, that's hockey again. That's hockey. That's hockey.
And what I love about doing the Mount Rushmores is it's not your typical just, oh, these four are the people that had this statistical category, they're 1 through 4. These are my 4 people. Whatever sport you're doing, whatever you're doing a Mount Rushmore for, I love just kind of getting the analysis of like what mindset, like on the baseball mindset, for example. It's a lot of the times it's a catcher that sneaks on there as a 4th person, or sometimes a manager, because you don't necessarily see those stats in the home run column or the RBI column, but these are guys that are pivotal to that team's success and to that pitcher's success. That same pitcher that we put on the list, we can't really leave that other half of that combo. And so in the NHL realm, I would imagine same thing. You're not just looking at goals, you're looking at all around. And we have had people on before that have put coaches on there or things like that. And there's no right or wrong answer to these. I love that sometimes the one it's that 4th that's a difference. Sometimes we can agree on 3, but it's that 4th that gets.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So give me your top 3 in no order, top 3 hockey moves of all time, and why.
Oh, well, Slapshot is a classic.
Yes,
because it's obviously a classic.
They brought their toys with them.
Yeah, exactly. That's good. I don't think it's Goon was one. Was a good one too.
Yeah.
I'm obviously not going to pick the one where the Americans win. Actually, right now,
and I don't blame you.
There's actually a show. It's called Shoresy.
I love Shoresy. I got a little inside baseball on Shoresy. I love Shoresy.
Man, every time an episode comes out, it's the first thing I do. Like sometimes, like they drop at midnight, and I'll have hockey that
Crave
night.
always gets it first. Crave always gets it about a month before we get it.
Yep. So, like I said, I thought you probably haven't even finished the new season yet.
Yep. They're filming right now.
Okay. Yeah. So it's not a movie, kind of going off here, but that's
but to me that's a movie.
I really enjoyed, and it's like you said, it really shows how that's a good show to show how a hockey team works.
So you saw
crazy as it is, it's pretty much what it is.
So you saw the last episode of season 4, right? When he was talking to the boys before they moved to juniors.
Yeah,
I'm cheering up now. I mean, it's true. Show the effort. You're from the north. I mean, how great was that?
Yeah, and that's just how hockey, and that's how it is. Like at this time, and everybody has good sticks. Everybody can skate, but at the end of the day, the one thing that moves the needle on these players these days, I think, is how hard they try and their heart.
Yeah,
and you need to put the team first.
Yep,
and that's
absolutely.
It all circles back to that loyalty.
So
that's what, like teams want to stay together, because you want to win for the guy next to you.
So you probably know this, that the cast of Shoresy this off season, they went around and kind of played. They played in Toronto, they played in Chicago, they played in Boston. So when they were in Boston, and I think one other place, I got to watch them. So I went.
Nice.
And then a little inside baseball, if I can use that term. So John Nasty Morasti, who plays one of the gyms, his son played for the Monsters. and he billeted at my house.
Oh, there you go. Eh?
So he invited us backstage, if you will. So I got to see all the guys,
That's cool.
and Jared Kelso and all those guys, and just wonderful people. Everything you think they would be.
Yeah.
And just, I'm laughing now because it's Mike. You must watch the show. It's don't have any kids around, but it is just. It's
well, I do have my son just turned 18 today, so he could.
So
he could be in the room.
There you go. Watch
you're
it with
good.
him.
And by the way, it's just salty language, and it's not. But it's just a great show. It's so real. You know, having billets who play junior hockey, everything there's real. You know, so I love those. So the only movie I would add, because I have so much experience with junior hockey, is Youngblood. I kind of like, yeah, though Patrick Swayze did not look like a hockey player.
I wouldn't think so.
Oh, that's funny.
No, but
and I noticed the Mighty Ducks were not on the list. Is that
no V formation, no flying V,
no knuckle pucks.
Yes, although I don't remember his name, but there was a guy. He was the one in the Ducks, the bigger guy, but he struggled with drug addiction for many years. He seems like he's turned things around, and which is great because he was like, you know, as low can get, and so Goldberg was his name, I believe, right?
Goldberg, yeah.
Okay. So I have one final question, and Darren, if you have a final question before we wrap things up, this has been a lot of fun. Makes me want to like really dive into my channels to try to find a game because, like, I'm telling you, like,
you got to at least start. You know what you do?
For whatever
Seriously,
reason,
start in the playoffs because all the games will be on, easy to watch, and then you'll just pick it up from there, and you'll watch some excellent hockey.
Yeah, and you would think living in Florida, I would have access to a Panthers and Lightning games at my disposal, but for whatever reason, and Devin, it's the same thing with the NFL and baseball. For whatever reason, Florida is wacko when it comes to professional sports. Like, you can't find your own team playing; they get blacked out. They used to do
blackouts out here, and it was just this dumb idea. I get,
but
go watch them live, but it made no sense.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know. A lot of the teams I have to go to like a sports bar and go to the corner table to watch my team play because they're blacked out. But so my final question, and Darren, your final one as we wrap things up here. So one of the things I absolutely love, as much as I love professional sports, I'm a big wrestling fan as well, and I love not just the main team or the main promotion. I love seeing the stars of tomorrow, and that's whether it's minor league baseball, whether it's NXT for the WWE product. So if you wouldn't mind just talking a little bit about what the American Hockey League and the ECHL, in terms of, we know that the American Hockey League is the primary developmental league, but do you get a chance to kind of dip your toe in the water a little bit in terms of that? Like, does that excite you to kind of see who's what's the next crop of talent that could be coming up, or are you really more focused on the NHL product? Because I like to dip my toes into the minor league system. I don't know every single person there is, but I love to kind of get in there and your thoughts on that.
So in Edmonton, we actually have not just an NHL team, we have a WHL team. So that's your teenagers, so before you get drafted, plays out of the same rink as the Oilers. So to be honest, I usually go to a hockey game, like in person. I'll go watch a Oil Kings game just because it's honestly way cheaper. But as for the AHL, I don't focus too much on it, just because there's maybe 3 or 4 players on the AHL that will probably make the jump up and down through the whole season. So that's where I'll focus more on the WHL, like the World Junior Championship. I'll watch more of just to see. A lot of it actually has
that's
to do with
intense hockey. That's intense hockey.
A lot of it has to do with more so the Oilers are actually a good team right now.
Mm-hmm.
So they draft so deep. It's not really, and we're mostly I think we are the oldest team in the NHL. So we don't really have much young talent in our system because we traded most of the way to improve our team at this deadline, right? So we maybe, like I said, have 2 or 3 players that could maybe go up and down in the NHL. and the rest are kind of just spot fillers, for lack of a better term. Like they're
Oh.
so good hockey players, but
Yep.
when your aspirations are to win a cup, you're not as focused on building a good farm team.
Nope.
So that kind of hurts the Bakerfield Condors.
So when I was covering the San Jose Barracuda, to your point, for the the San Jose Sharks weren't very good either. So there you have a different issue because then both teams are very good, but you had some nice access. When you're the Oilers, sorry, son, enjoy the pizza in the AHL.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they're good, even if you're, like I said, a player that's playing for the Condors. If they were not on Edmonton, like for example, if they played for San Jose, they'd probably be in the NHL.
Yep, that's a
right?
good way to put
So
it.
that's the one bad thing, if you want to put it that way, of being drafted to the Oilers right now, is you have to beat out a proven NHL vet to get on the team. You're not beating out 3 or 4 other rookies. You're beating out people that have been in the league for years. That's tough to do.
So I got a question about Edmonton. We kind of talked about the Oilers here, but we again talk about a lot of different things. I am a fan of the CFL more so sometimes than the NFL. And tell me a little bit about the Elks. Do you follow the Elks? And
So the Elks are a little bit rebuilding right now. They just got all brand new ownership this past off season. They used to be actually owned by the city. So the city used to manage it, used to own the league, own everything. So they actually got a owner who grew up, loved the team. So now you can, even with just this last off season, you can tell it's switched more from a city-based thing where obviously you're just trying to not lose a bunch of money and be as much as you can, to a team that's actually trying to win.
Think Oakland A's, Mike. Think Oakland A's. Gotcha.
Yeah. So they basically are now, you can tell this guy's open to spending a bit more money, bringing in players. So like we had a good team like 10 years ago. We won a bunch back to back.
And you won a lot of Grey Cups. I mean, there's a lot of history there. I mean, and to use the European term about a derby, you had some nice derbies with the Stampeders of Calgary. But boy, Toronto gets all the limelight with the CFL, doesn't it?
Oh, Toronto gets all the limelight of everything up here in Canada. Everything's Toronto based. It's unfortunate.
I still, speaking of Canada, it still blows my mind that '93 was the last year that a Canada team has won the Stanley Cup. So I don't know. Yeah, that is true. I feel like this, but no, I say that because I do feel like this is the year. I don't know who, and I don't know where it's going to come from. But on record, you can tell me I'm wrong, but I feel like this is the year. I know might be a long shot, and I know the least about hockey out of the three of us here. However, this is the year. So
no, you got Edmonton and Winnipeg both have legit shots. I think
Winnipeg's doing really good right now.
That's right. as long as the goalie doesn't choke again in the playoffs.
Yeah. And are you guys a fan of the 3-team per, or I should say 3 teams per division getting to 12, and then the 4 additional spots coming as basically so we can make sure I have that right. So
I'll let
top 3 teams from each division. Yeah, for the playoffs. So the top 3 teams of each division make the playoffs, but then there's 4 other teams that get in, but they don't necessarily have to be so there's like 1 per division as the 4th. Like it
doesn't even have to be. It's just so it's split East and West, and then each East and West has 2. So it'll take 3 and 3, and then just the next 2 best. So they could even both be from the same division if that division's just better. But
so it's still basically 1 versus 8. There's no buys or anything like that.
So that's where you end up with it's 1 versus the lower of the final 2. Right. Like whoever's the best plays whoever's the worst of those final 2. But then
which is
they stick to their
round.
side.
Yep.
But then you stick to your sides still.
Yep.
Like the Pacific will finish up the Pacific, and then they'll play the Central. It builds a lot more. I think the main point was to save on travel and build rivalries. It's my best guess.
Well, sure. I mean, I'm older than dirt, but so I remember, for example, it's to your point, it's wonderful. It used to be the top 16 teams made it, and 1 played 16. I remember one year, for example, and it was 2 out of 3 in the first round of the playoffs.
Yep.
and the Rangers played the Kings, which is ridiculous. The Rangers in New York are flying to LA for a best 2 out of 3. It's ridiculous. It's just not a good use of time, and it's just ridiculous.
Not at all. Nope. So as we end things here, Devin, thank you so much for jumping on. We have to ask your final prediction. You can put your fan cap on. You can take it off. It's fine with me. Your Eastern and Western Conference championship games and your Stanley Cup champion prediction, and go.
So for the West, I'll go. So you're right. I'm going to choose Oilers. They have.
Right, okay.
Hopefully, they get their.
Yeah, it's not about now. It's how they finish. So that maybe they'll finish.
Then I'd say Winnipeg. Like you said, Winnipeg's doing really good. But I think I'll go probably Dallas on it. So I'll go Edmonton versus Dallas.
They did a great job at the trading deadline.
Yeah.
Dallas got deep.
And I think I'll go Washington. Oof, those Florida teams. It's gonna be tough. That's a tough go. I think I'm gonna go Tampa Bay makes it back again. And then I think it might be I'm gonna go Tampa Edmonton for my final. And then I want Edmonton to win.
So before we go, because we have to wrap up, but I want to ask your opinion as a lifelong Oiler fan. I could probably, just talking to you, feel like I know you for a long time. You know your stuff. Great, Ovechkin, get the record, but you're not Gretzky.
It's like I go back and forth all the time because obviously Wayne Gretzky's an Oiler. I still think, like, pure goal scoring wise, I know it's like the time frames are all off, but it's hard. I always trouble to compare time frames like that. Like,
I agree.
Gretzky's going on. Like, those goalies that Gretzky scored on, you could score if you hit the net. Essentially, like it's like a soccer. It's give the guy a chance.
I agree. Different times, different.
Yeah, it's hard to compare. But like the goalies, like, but then it goes the other way. Like Ovechkin's using a stick and he can shoot the puck with.
Yes, it's curved and raised. Right? It's not a piece of wood that was taken off a fence up the street.
The sticks are bad. It's a bit of both. It's hard. It's hard to compare. Like, even with like in basketball, they do who's better, LeBron or Jordan. It's hard to compare unless you put them both in their prime and give everything the same. It's so hard with time frames like that.
The only thing that I would say is if you count goals and assists, it's just ridiculous. It's just, and that takes nothing away from Ovechkin.
Touch Gretzky. No one will ever touch that number. It's just crazy the numbers he put up.
Yep.
Yeah, no one will ever come close to it.
So basically, Mike, just so you know, if you took every goal away that Gretzky ever scored, he would still have the most points ever. I mean, that's how many assists he had.
Oh my God. You mean
like they have the most points as siblings, and Gretzky's brother played 2 games or something like that.
That's true.
That's wow. That really puts things in it. But it's true. Like in the MLB world, that's like you're not going to see a 400 game winner. Again, things like that. So think this has been a blast. I'm telling you, I'm going to watch some NHL hockey this week, and I will. You can hold me to that. You can message me, and I'll let you know a game I watched. So just a quick preview, and then we'll wrap things up here. What's to come? Thank you guys for watching so much. We've got our 30 Parks in 30 Days, Los Angeles Angels coming out next. That is our daily preview of the 2025 season. This Sunday night, we are going to have DJ Eddie Anthony on from No Comp Productions. Over 25 years in the ministry as worship leader. He is now going into the DJ realm and doing his own thing. And so super excited to get to know him. And then, of course, we will be live Monday Night Raw from Brussels, Belgium, actually, this week. They are going on the road. We're going to see Cody Rhodes and John Cena under one roof. So that's going to be an epic showdown before their big match at WrestleMania 41. But Devin, thank you so much for being here. Darren as well. I've had a blast. And until next time, everybody, we'll see you around the ball.